Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm José.
And today we're talking about X, a slasher film, old school horror, written and directed by Ty West, who I hadn't heard of.
I haven't heard of.
And he's made other films that neither of us have seen.
Yes.
I didn't know very much about this. I knew it was 18 rated, and that's always a cause for excitement because so much stuff is dulled down for 15 or 12A to make the money and whatnot. Kind of excited to see proper 18 rated stuff. I knew it was sex related. It's about these young adults, teens, 6 of them. They want to make a porn film. They rent, this is in 1979 in Texas, they rent a place on a farmstead, owned by this very, very old couple. Very, very old, like crypt keeper old, with the white hair that's creepy and all of that sort of stuff. It really builds on tropes like that. To make this porn movie. They haven't told them that's what they're going to do and all this, but that's what they're doing. And then people start getting picked off in very, very gruesome ways. And one of the most exciting things about this film was your reactions to it.
I hated every moment of it.
You were jumpy, you were screaming. I mean, I've never seen a film... I know you hated it. I've never seen a film get this kind of reaction from you, though.
Well, as you know, I don't like horror. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons why I don't like horror is because I don't like seeing stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I feel I have to see it for professional reasons, and I do. And, sometimes I'm very pleasantly surprised. I mean, sometimes I end up, liking stuff very much, like Get Out and things like that. But I hated this on many, many levels.
Yeah, I didn't like it very much either. But not for the same... Well, maybe for some of the same reasons, but not for that reason in particular. I mean, what I liked was getting to sit next to you while you jumped, And I didn't find it horrific in a way that was unpleasant to me or offensive or anything like that. Like, I mean, it just kind of washed over me, that stuff. The gore and the...
Well, I really didn't like it.
Yeah. I just didn't think much of it. So the thing is, I wouldn't normally be particularly interested in a slasher, except that I had seen people talking about this. And from the setting, I vaguely, I guess, got the impression that it had some interest in filmmaking and some self-referentiality and that kind of thing. So that was kind of what was interesting to me in principle.
Yes.
I don't think it's that sophisticated.
No, but it's what I like best about this film.
Sure.
The talking about porn in the coming context of VHS, and how this guy who wants to make like porn but art, and where you position the camera can create a different image. All of that stuff was neat. I like that, and I like the period feel, and I loved the music.
Yeah, it's a film that you feel. It's a film that you feel has not had that much money spent on it, apart from the soundtrack. Yeah. Which, the amount of money that's gone into clearance for Don't Fear the Reaper, Landslide, what were we singing on the way home?
I forget.
Bad Case of Loving You, Robert Palmer.
Yeah. It's a lot of classic songs from the period. But I kind of... I find it almost like an immoral film, because... It's meant to creep you out and disgust you by age. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Kind of age is what's meant to be horrible, frightful, disgusting, right? And so on. Thus, kind of spurring on the murders until you get to the final girl. I mean, it's a classic final girl film. Mm-hmm. Yeah? And I suppose the only thing that it does new with it is... that it's a porn star that survives.
I don't think that's the only thing that it does that's new or kind of slightly novel. The villains, as it turns out, I mean, I guess you should be suspecting it, is this old couple. And the woman in particular is... I think at some points you kind of feel sorry for her because she's jealous of the beauty and youth of these people. Sorry for her. Okay, well, you might do, though. You can certainly see what I'm getting at, right? That,
I do.
She's jealous of the beauty and youth of these people, and she's jealous of how freely she's spying on them while they're shooting these porn scenes. And she's clearly very jealous, and the husband is very aware of this. He can't have sex with his wife. His heart is very weak, and that's why he can't, even though he really would like to. So she's a morass of this unfulfilled sexual desire. She's still very, very sexually she wishes she was sexually active. She, in her head, she's got a libido and all this, right?
And the loss of beauty has driven her to murder.
Yeah, and that jealousy and so on. And the thing that I think is kind of novel about it is, in slashers, it's such a classic thing to have the sexually active kids being punished for their sexual activity through murder. As indeed, they all die here, right? So I'm not saying...
except that the porn star is the one who survives.
Except the porn star is the one who survives, so you're right. And also the first one who dies is in fact the prude. I mean, we're led to believe that another character is going to be a prude. Anyway. But the clearly prudish one, who's the filmmaker guy, is the first one who goes. So that is that's interesting. It is trying to invert that trope.
Not, I mean, only, I think only in terms of what I said, because, it's still only the final girl who survives, right? That's it. But, the final girl who survives is, it turns out, spoilers, the daughter of a televangelist, who keeps repeating, don't accept your...
I won't accept a life that I don't deserve, something like that. It's something quite millennial. And
yeah. So she rejects the Christianity for porn, and she ends up surviving, which actually I do think in a classic slasher film is the tables turning.
Yeah.
But that's it. They all do get picked off one by one. And actually I was very disturbed by some of the elements, right? So, age and aging and loss of beauty and libido and sex drive and so on, those are all themes in the film. But as I said, using old age to creep you out is, I think, terrible. Yeah, it's kind of immoral, really, I think. It's easy, and it's also kind of wrong. We're all going to get old. We're all going to have saggy skin. There are lots of filmmakers who turn that into something beautiful. So fair enough, that... Yeah, it's an interesting idea to have a woman's loss of sexual desirability as a spark to murder. Certainly, much more original than if it were a man. But
it wouldn't be the first film that's done that. I mean,
but it doesn't matter if it's not the first one to do that. I think it's kind of immoral to do that. So I didn't like that. I also thought, to make the black guy with the big dick a penis, and then to make the big dick into a joke, is kind of feeding into all of these stereotypes that are actually kind of, ring alarm bells, really. There's also the gender thing, and on several levels, right? So, for example, they could also have cast a producer as the porn star. That was quite normal to do that, right? Like, these are small, low-budget films. Everybody pitches in in everything. But no, it's only the black guy who's actually kind of active. And it's only the women who you see the bodies of, right? So kind of, the women are undressed. Yeah, the camera remains coy about the men, except when, it's clearly prosthetics when you find out that actually this old couple has been doing this quite regularly, because there's an old Volkswagen in the pond, and there's a man who's been tied up, chained, and tortured and killed, and obviously sexually played with in the cellar.
Yeah, if not regularly, once before. I don't know that we have a pattern of repeated things, but certainly once before.
The implication is that it's happened. And that is, the bit of male nudity that you see, when you see this corpse, this male corpse in the cellar. So I thought it was all like, ugh.
Yeah, it is pretty grim, and I don't really wish to defend it too much. And I don't think it's very clever, and that's really my main objection to it, is I think it thinks it's being a little bit clever and cuter with all the film references and things like that than it is. I don't think it is. It loves its period, and I think it loves the films it's building on. It's not just slashers. I mean, well, you could call Psycho the first slasher, I guess. Some people do. Psycho is a film it references reasonably heavily as well. It's one of the heavier references.
Porn is also 70s porn is also a reference.
Yeah, absolutely. Debbie Does Dallas is a reference that's explicit. So it loves its period, and it loves the history that it's building on. It starts off with looking out from the inside of the place where the kids are staying, the little sort of outhouse, whatever, on the farmstead. It looks out from it, and inside it's dark, so it's framed by these two black borders. So although the whole film is made in widescreen, the initial shot is a full frame shot. And then that full frame imagery keeps on coming back because we see things on TV, we see the footage of the camera as they're filming the pornos. Again, and actually the very end, the final credits
are in 16mm.
Are in 16mm, 4:3, so it has a kind of bit of a fetish for that kind of stuff. It uses these wipes that are very kind of artificial and again speak to kind of cheapness and old filmmaking.
Yeah, I didn't like that either.
No.
Yeah, I didn't like all the split screen stuff.
Yeah.
That tries to mix one world with the other. It tries to connect them both. Yeah, kind of very artificially, because actually what's happening in one part of the frame is often not really related to what's happening with the other.
No.
So I thought that was cheap.
It's very film schooly in that way, and unappealingly so.
And I hated the editing as well, which kind of elongates time. So, you see something, and then you see it again later on, and then you cut back to the earlier moments,
it does have cutting, rather than cutting straight from one scene to another, it'll very often do 2 or 3 cuts from one to the other and back again, back and forth 2 or 3 times, as if the scenes are kind of bleeding into each other. But what's the purpose? I didn't see any purpose.
I didn't see any purpose.
The other bit of editing that's a little like that is the cross-cutting between a couple of scenes where, so the girl, the porn star who ends up making it, goes into the house at the start because she sees this little old woman and she's like, what's going on? She's right at the start of the film. And she is given lemonade by this woman, and it's all kind of creepy and a big Texas chainsaw-y. At the same time, in the sort of cabin, they're filming the kind of intro scene to the porn film where the girl invites the guy in, do you want some lemonade? So they're doing the same scene, effectively. It's one person giving lemonade to another person who's come into their home, and the film cross-cuts between them, kind of ironically, right? Because in the one scene, the girl is coming onto the guy and they're going to fuck. And in this other scene, it's really creepy and weird. And what's this woman up to? And it gets kind of a joke or two out of it, or at least a sort of slightly funny situational bit of cross-cutting. But it's not more richly purposeful than that. And I don't think it's worth it. It's more confusing than... It's confusing the right word? It just doesn't seem...
It doesn't...
Planned, thought through.
It doesn't convey anything. It doesn't add anything. It just feels like a trick. Not even a trick. Like, the filmmaker saying, oh, let's be imaginative or something. But actually it's not. And it certainly doesn't convey anything. And all that it ends up doing is puzzling you. It's like, why the hell is it doing this, right?
And where's it going?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the answer is nowhere. It doesn't do anything.
Exactly. So...
What about the couple of moments of... it's interesting, actually. One of the filmmaker character who's interested in the avant-garde and French New Wave and all this kind of stuff, and we don't. He says we don't have to have a narrative. Narrative's too overrated because what we have to do is just give the audience what they want. That's what they're here for, really, right? So we don't have to convince. We can just get into the sex or whatever. He says something like that at one point. And there are a couple of moments that make me think of that in the context of the whole film, which is after the first murder, for instance, the old lady having killed that filmmaker character. The music's still playing in the truck he was trying to escape. It's Don't Fear the Reaper. And she has a little dance to herself. Another one would be when they play Landslide in the cabin. It's not purposeful, and it's a little bit beautiful. And it makes me... I think the film is kind of building on that idea that the narrative isn't quite so important. We can have these extra bits, these different bits.
There's all plot, this film. I mean, so if it's trying to do that, it's definitely not trying to. I mean,
Well, it also has a plot that fully makes sense and is fleshed out,
and it completely coheres.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, what I learned is that the lead porn actress, the blonde, and Pearl are played by the same actress.
Oh,
right?
are they?
Yeah, and again, I thought, that could have been interesting, right? Because, if you'd put the focus on the blonde, and have her play Pearl, then you could relate those two characters in a very intriguing way, right? Except that the emphasis is really on the younger brunette porn actress, right?
No, that's the one who plays Pearl.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, the blonde, the main porn actress is not. That's Jenna Ortega. She plays her own. That's just her own.
Oh, right, okay, got it. Okay, well then that does make it. That does add a layer of interest, right? Because in a way, Yeah, the kind of the when the old lady says you will be me, then actually you think, well, you are.
Yeah. No, I didn't know that though. But I did think that the film is drawing a line parallel between these two. And I actually wondered whether it would get time travel about it, and like I'm actually you from the past or something like that. It doesn't do that.
No, it doesn't have the imagination to do much with it. Actually, that's the problem.
Well, I'm not saying that my solution would have been imaginative. I'm just saying I wondered whether that was going to happen. But you were pointing out that they were filming in secret a prequel to this called Pearl, which is about the old lady character.
Yes.
So we're going to apparently find out about her past and so on and so forth. It's interesting to make two films back to back, one of them in secret, until such time as...
There were things that I did like very much about the film. So, for example, at the beginning, when there is at the strip club, right? They open the door in the back, and really the building is a billboard, and you have the fields of wherever it is, but it's supposed to be Kansas, right?
Texas,
and you have this huge open space. I thought that was like, kind of visually, there are kind of intriguing ways that it's filmed, that it kind of like creates angles, right, that are at once evocative of a space that's old and that's been lived in and that is, has decrepitude, and also kind of very interesting kind of as a setting for the action that is always kind of skewed or something. So I liked some of the compositions. I like the period feel. Yeah, I think they managed to get that right in a way. Yeah, kind of from the makeup and the hair, and so all of that I quite liked. But I hated the experience of sitting through it.
Yeah, well, I loved it because you were sat next to me. But had you not been sat next to me, I wouldn't have given two shits about it. So what I would say is I recommend this only if you can go see it with José. Otherwise, give it a miss. I don't think it's that interesting, really.
Yes, I screeched throughout.
Yeah.
Oh well, I wouldn't recommend it at all, really.
No.
And I think it's overpraised as it is.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's the problem. Is people just lap this kind of low effort shit up. Like, oh, they talked about films I like.
Yes.
It's got to be better than that.
Anyway, thank you very much for listening. We are Eavesdropping at the Movies, and we are on
Apple Podcasts, Audible, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. On social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter, and the website is eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Thank you very much for listening.
Bye-bye.